reason that you bike there is because you lost your driver's license. The only thing I like better than biking is skating. So if you see somebody on the green belt that comes by really fast, that's me on my skates. And I actually go faster on my skates than on my bikes. On my bike. And I love raw herring. So in a couple of weeks I'm actually going to Amsterdam, and the first thing I will do as soon as I get out of Schiphol Airport is get myself some raw herring. Alright, having said that, I want to tell you a little bit about bikes in the Dutch, because I think there is some interesting things that, I'm used to certain things that exist in the infrastructure, and obviously they don't exist, right? So the average Dutch person uses a bike 300 times a year, which is 300 days a year. Just think about it. And the bike is basically for most people it is your number one mode of transportation. It's not a car, it's a bike. 27% of all trips in the Netherlands are by bike. Way more than there are by public transit. People always think about public transit as being a solution to congestion. The reality is in the Netherlands it's not public transit, although there is good public transit. The reality is it's the bike more than anything else. Biking is expected to continue to increase in the Netherlands. And I want to show you this. So here's for a city, 2004 to 2006, 2010 to 2011, and what they want to do for 2015. And unfortunately it is Dutch, so I can tell you whatever I want. Right? This is internal within the city. This is outside of the city. So they make a big difference between biking in the city or biking from one city to another city. Right? So what you see is that inside the city, the goal is that 44% of all trips are by bike. Just imagine it. 44% of all trips in Boise will be by bike. That's the goal. And they've actually achieved it. They're actually probably better than that. Now look at public transit, the red one, it's only 6%. Much smaller amount, and this is by car. So about half of the trips are by car, the other half in other ways. And this is external. So this is people actually moving from city to city. And what you see is that the car then is way more important. So when people here talk about bikes, they always think about, I want to be on a bike all the time. No, I want to have choices. I want to make a choice when I'm going to walk, when I'm going to bike, and when I'm going to use the car. Alright, the Dutch are biking more often and longer distances. So this is less and this is more. And I'm just going to go over the more. More for education, more for free time, more to go to work, more different. More for, further away for education, further away for shopping, further away for recreation, further away from work. And this is more people. Now where do you think this increase happens? Who is biking more?
Middle age.
Sorry?
Middle age.
Middle age? Anybody else? Who would be biking more than anybody else? It's old folks. Like this guy. This is the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. No, it's actually old people, because with the e-bikes that are becoming more and more popular, people like my mom, who is 80 or almost 80, is still able to bike. And it actually really has had an impact on the mobility of the elderly, who can actually now still bike and do all kinds of things that they couldn't do before with the e-bike. So, and the e-bikes don't go as fast as they do here. Right? Here you see some of those e-bikes and it's scary. But there they don't. I mean, it's much more controlled. But so this is an everybody bike. So this is the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, who you will actually see biking around in a suit, going to meetings. They do it for transportation, all right? Here is with your kids and having fun going to the beach or something. Here is when you move. That's how I moved. I moved from one place to the other by bike. You know, you have these big bikes with this front part on it, and it's actually fairly comfortable. They have springs in them. Here's another guy who's obviously moving, probably a student. This is what I grew up with, where the baker and the butcher and people actually come by your house and they actually have a bike with the fresh produce on it and they sell it. And the big advantage of that is that they have a small footprint. They can go from place to place. They go back to the store, pick up fresh stuff, and do it again. Right? And yes, funerals. We even do funerals by bike. Alright, so I have one request. When I die, I want to have a funeral by bike. And I want to go to Main Street in Boise. That would be kind of cool. Alright. So, now it also means that the Dutch have some fantastic infrastructure for biking. I mean, they really have some cool stuff. So I'm going to show you some of that. Here we go. Alright. They have heating elements and bike paths. They have the heating elements so that in the winter you don't get slippery roads, and as a bike you can just keep on going. Right? They have garages for bicycles, and I will show you some pictures of it. They have a greenway for cyclists, not the one that we have for the cars. They actually have one for bikes. They have traffic lights that give cyclists a green light more quickly and more often when it rains. When it rains, you have more impact about rain, so the bike path, the bike lights will actually switch faster. They have things with photovoltaic service for generation of electricity. They have traffic lights for bikes at the crossroads, reserved turning lanes, and all this kind of stuff. So here is the solar installation that they did. It actually started with this kind of thing where it was an art installation and it was lit. But they're now using it much more, not just for this, but for all kinds of stuff. And here you see the installation that they're actually doing. This is a bike garage. So where if you ever go to the transit center and you have to really hold on to the bike to go down or go up, here you don't. You just walk up, and then it will nicely move the moving band will move you down, up or down. And then you can see how neatly packed those bikes are. It's a secure space, but where you think we have a parking problem here, there they also have a parking problem. The parking is for bikes. Here is the rain sensors. So if it rains, these sensors sense it, and the light actually turns green more often. The other thing that the bike that they have, and I don't want to show you this, but it's really funny. The light for bikes get green all at the same time. All right, so where you have your normal traffic flow, then the lights all become green for bikes. And there's a tremendous conflict at that same time. But since nobody goes fast, but there is, right? Because one person is going this way, another person is going this way. But because they're not going very fast, it kind of solves itself. And bikes and pedestrians clear traffic lights much faster than cars do. You don't need a lot of time for a traffic light to stay on because bikes just move through it really fast. Do you know what it takes a car? Is it like 30 seconds the first car and then 10 seconds ever after or something? But it's something like that, right? It takes a while for the car to get started. The bike just goes. So it goes much faster. All right, this I think is really cool. I've never seen that before. For those green e-bikes, they actually now have charging stations. So when you park your bike, you actually plug it in and you can charge your battery. And this is one that I have never seen before. They actually have an app, so they have locks that are standard on your bike. And you can actually use the app to turn it off and on to lock it. And you can say, can I lock my bike? And you can just go, yep, let me lock it. It's the same as I do with my garage door. All right. Here then you can see, all these kind of things that actually tell you that when you get your bike and you get to a light, this says, we've seen you. So the bike, they're actually acknowledging that they know you are there as a bike and it will give you a green light as soon as possible. So fantastic infrastructure. This to me is really interesting, this rotunda. There's some really interesting design things in there. So the Dutch, you can see here, this red here is the bike lane. So the first thing is, there's a clear differentiation between the road and what the bike lane looks like. The second thing is that once a conflict is going to occur, which is going to occur at this rotunda, right? They make sure that the bike and the car are separated so that it's easier to see each other. Because if you're right next to each other, it's very easy to not see each other. But if you start separating with somebody, you can actually start seeing them. So they start separating it so that this car now is turning, right? This car now turns here. If they want to turn in here, you can see, the first thing you do is you make them turn completely so that they can face the bike that is coming, rather than seeing the bike from the side, which is what we offer. Right? So you continuously want to make sure that people can see each other. And this whole design is based on that. And I'll come back to that later when I show you some stuff at Whole Foods where they try to do that, but they're miserably failed. This is actually where I grew up. I couldn't believe that they had this. So this is a bridge that is open fairly frequently because there's a lot of traffic, boat traffic, barges coming through. So what they did for the bikes and the pedestrians is that they created this higher thing. And it is just under the right angle that you can actually do it as a bike fairly easy. And you can now go from the one side to the other side much easier than you ever did before because they don't have to open it up anymore. It looks pretty steep when you look at it, but it's actually okay. It's okay. My mom, who, as I told you, is almost 80, can go over this bridge. And here you can see, here's the barges, traffic, and stuff coming through. All right. This is probably the fanciest piece of infrastructure. think you need it that fancy, but they had this intersection and they couldn't figure out what to do with the bikes. So they actually created this kind of artsy looking bridge on top where now people, and it's an art installation, there's lights and all this kind of stuff. And it's actually really cool, but you don't necessarily need something that fancy. And here you see when you actually go over the bridge, right? That's pretty cool. I would love to go there on my skates and just go around and around. Alright, and this is actually, I want to put this one in there because it's old infrastructure, which to me is actually working much better. So these are what we called mushrooms. And it is wayfinding for bikes. And you think about a bike, you don't need the signs up there. Right? A bike is actually just as easy when it's actually lower by the ground. So here they have these signals for bikes that only are appropriate for bikes because a car cannot, there's no way a bike can go there. But I remember growing up and I never looked at other signs. It was always where's the next mushroom. You would go from mushroom to mushroom to figure out where you had to go, wherever you were. Alright. I think I want to show you this one. I'll show you a little bit. This is a high-speed intercity route. It's called a cycle highway, designed for long-distance commuters. And this is probably one of the coolest ones. I'll show you just a little bit and not waste too much time on it.
The central railway station in Nijmegen is now connected to the one in Arnhem by an 18-kilometer high-speed cycleway. The first 2 kilometers are on the Snelminder cycle bridge over the river Waal, at the foot of which there is a sign telling you it is still 16 kilometers to Arnhem. She's right. It will be fine. Look at the wide cycleway, far away from motor traffic. The route takes you to perfect overpasses and wide tunnels, one of which has an art installation of lights in the form of bicycle chains, for which there is an app for your smartphone that allows you to choose your favorite colors to be shown while you ride in the tunnel. Speaking of lights, the whole route is lit with specially designed light fixtures, also in the shape of a bicycle chain. The logo of this route called Vandal Voices. The route is very clear, even where you have to make turns. You can simply follow the red carpet of smooth asphalt, even when it winds through a village along the route. A very nice village, I might.
Alright, I'll stop there, but what is interesting to me is that it's really about making it comfortable and making it fun, right? So when you think about you going on a trip, the first thing you do is you download the app and you make sure that the colors go the way that you want them and the music goes the way you want it. And then when you bike through it, because it recognizes your phone,